the Kings have a slew of tough matchups, including the Nuggets, Golden State, the Grizzlies, the Hawks, and others, making for a pressure-packed start. If you look at the first 20 games of the Kings, it is absolutely tough. If you look at the Kings, if they don't get off to a good start this season, this could absolutely be a season from hell. The final games in this schedule are crucial, concluding with matchups against the New Orleans Pelicans. As of right now, the Kings only go to New Orleans once this season. And plus you got the Clippers, 2 games against Golden State, April 7th and the 10th. And then finally, you end the season against the Portland Trailblazers. And these opponents are likely to be in the Western Conference play-in and or push for playoff discussions this season. And if the Kings aren't in it, they could play the role of spoiler, making the close of this season meaningful for seeding in a very tough Western Conference this season, because it's the West is incredibly tough. And the Kings, who I don't think is going to be good, and we'll get more on the Kings over and under for this upcoming season. And just some of the things, if you want to watch out for, the early season, October and November, could be a grueling test with you got the defending champs and several strong teams in that in-season NBA Cup tournament, which begins the mid-season, January, February, and this schedule demands early resilience, strategic rest, because we know this Kings team, as of right now, this is an old roster. And if everything goes well, Kings, on paper, they have some good players. But if things don't go well, the strategic rest and the mental fortitude could go downhill. And with a challenging start for Sacramento, multiple marquee games, and an emphasis on the national coverage and nine national TV games, this Sacramento Kings season is carefully designed to be a test and a showcase. Kings-related podcast, wherever you may be. And on today's episode, the 2025-26 NBA schedule is officially here. And I'm going to go over some of the major takeaways from the NBA's schedule release when it comes to the Sacramento Kings. But first, if you're watching this video on YouTube, please give this video a like, a subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Be much appreciated. Just some of the Kings schedule notes before I get into the bulk of it here shortly. The Sacramento Kings, they have 9 national TV games, 5 on NBC, 2 on Peacock, 1 on Amazon Prime, and 1 on ESPN. And the Kings, the longest road trip of the season is 6 games, and it comes in January, where they go to Cleveland, Detroit, the Knicks, Philadelphia, Boston, and Washington, D.C. And their longest homestand of the season is 7 games, which is also in January, where they are at Golden One Center to host the Houston Rockets, the Los Angeles Lakers, the New York Knicks, Mike Brown's first game in Sacramento since he was let go. You host the Washington Wizards, the Portland Trailblazers, Miami, and the Toronto Raptors. The Kings also have 14 back-to-backs this season. No rivals week games this year, and also 5 of the Kings' first 7 games this season are on the road. and they kick off the season October 22nd on the road against the Phoenix Suns, and then the Kings' home opener is following the October 24th against the Utah Jazz, and the opening week finale is coming October 26th versus LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and the Los Angeles Lakers. If you want to look at November, the month of November for the Sacramento Kings, it is packed. They have multiple early games against some of the top tier opponents like the defending champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who they will play 3 times within the first 15 games. The third game against Oklahoma City Thunder comes on the 19th. Just incredible. Also, the Thunder are also part of the Kings NBA Cup group. And also, the Kings have a slew of tough matchups, including the Nuggets, Golden State, the Grizzlies, the Hawks, and others, making for a pressure-packed start. If you look at the first 20 games of the Kings, it is absolutely tough. If you look at the Kings, if they don't get off to a good start this season, this could absolutely be a season from hell. I'm not expecting a lot from this season. I'm just hoping when we hit January and that trade deadline, we move off some contracts and we play more Clifford, Reynaud, and some of the young players more minutes when we hit January and the deadline, so they get that experience as we round out the end of the season. The Kings NBA Cup in-season tournament, it is during November, and the Kings will compete in that NBA Cup in the group stage. Their first game, November 7th, against Oklahoma City. The next game is the 14th at Minnesota. Then you got November 26th against the Phoenix Suns. November 20th, back-to-backs and the road trip for the Kings. Again, the Kings, 14 back-to-backs this season, including they have 6 home-and-home back-to-backs, 5 away from going to 1 back-to-backs, and 2 home and away back-to-backs, and 1 away and home configuration of those back-to-backs. And the Kings' 2 longest road trips this season, you got the longest road trip of the season, 6 games. That is in January. Where you go back east, and then you got your longest homestand of the season, also in January for the Sacramento Kings. So both the longest stretch of games comes into 1 month of this upcoming season, all in January. The Kings' national TV exposure this year, again, 9 games between NBC, Peacock, Prime, ESPN. And with that national TV, those games, the Kings have 5 of those games where the tip-off is at 8 p.m. So those are going to be late nights, especially if you're a Kings fan on the East Coast. Staying up. It's even worse if the game goes into overtime or double overtime. But the Kings' first national TV game is November 11th on NBC against the Nuggets. That will be an 8 p.m. tip-off. Then you got December 8th in Indiana. That game's on Peacock. Then you at the end of December, you're in LA against the Clippers. That game's on Peacock. That's another PM start. And then January 6th, you're at home against the Dallas Mavericks on NBC. The 12th of January, you host the Lakers on Peacock. And then the 6th of February on Prime against the Los Angeles Clippers. March 3rd against the Suns on NBC. And the lone ESPN game is March 14th in LA against the Clippers. And then the lone trip to Sacramento for De'Aaron Fox comes all the way March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, when San Antonio comes into Sacramento. And that could be a big game for San Antonio if they're fighting for playoff positioning. And if the Kings are somehow in it, that could be a big game for them. Or the Kings could play spoiler and ruin the party for San Antonio. So either way, that could be a big game for San Antonio based on playoff positioning. Some notable matchups for Sacramento. Again, January 14th, Mike Brown returns to Sacramento as the New York Knicks head coach. De'Aaron Fox, March 17th, turns in a prime time matchup on NBC. Easter Sunday, April 5th, the Kings host the Los Angeles Clippers. That's a holiday primetime spotlight for the Kings. No Christmas, no surprise there, or Martin Luther King Day games for Sacramento. But that March 17th Fox return and the Easter game could loom large for the Kings, San Antonio, or one of those teams, or maybe both, for playoff position if both teams are in it. The Kings face both the Lakers and Golden State 4 times throughout this season. The Lakers, October 26th, December 28th, January 12th, and March 1st. Golden State, you face Golden State November 5th, January 9th, April 7th, and a couple days later on April 10th. The final games in this schedule are crucial, concluding with matchups against the New Orleans Pelicans. As of right now, the Kings only go to New Orleans once this season. And plus you got the Clippers, 2 games against Golden State, April 7th and the 10th. And then finally, you end the season against the Portland Trailblazers. And these opponents are likely to be in the Western Conference play-in and or push for playoff discussions this season. And if the Kings aren't in it, they could play the role of spoiler, making the close of this season meaningful for seeding in a very tough Western Conference this season, because it's the West is incredibly tough. And the Kings, who I don't think is going to be good, and we'll get more on the Kings over and under for this upcoming season. And just some of the things if you want to watch out for. The early season, October and November, could be a grueling test with you got the defending champs and several strong teams in that in-season NBA Cup tournament, which begins the mid-season, January, February. You got the marathon road trip and potential, maybe fatigue, and that national spotlight. Plus, you got the 7-game homestand. They're midway into this season. And then later in the season, March and April, you got the revenge arc with De'Aaron Fox's return and strong rival matchups as we end the season with potentially some high stakes finish for the Sacramento Kings. And this schedule demands early resilience, strategic rest, because we know this Kings team, as of right now, this is an old roster. And if everything goes well, Kings on paper they have some good players, but if things don't go well, the strategic rest and the mental fortitude could go downhill. And with a challenging start for Sacramento, multiple marquee games, and an emphasis on the national coverage and nine national TV games, this Sacramento Kings season is carefully designed to be a test and a showcase, because I don't have high hopes for this upcoming season for Sacramento. On paper, they could be a good team if everything goes right, if they're healthy. But if the Kings start getting bit by the injuries, things could go awry, and they could go awry quickly for the Sacramento Kings. The number 1 pick in the draft, Cooper Flag, makes his Sacramento debut for the Mavericks in December on the 27th when the Mavs come to Sacramento in a rematch of that awful play-in game where the Kings probably remember that and how their season ended. That is the Kings 2025-2026 NBA schedule. I'm not a person who's into the whole win-loss game. Can we predict? Because you can't predict. The one thing you can't predict is injuries. But I think the early part of the Kings schedule is massive to get off to a good start. You kick off your first 2 games on the road against the Suns, and then you got your home opener against Utah. On paper, those should be wins for Sacramento because I don't think the Suns are going to be good this season. Utah, are they still in the rebuild? They could surprise some folks. I think on paper, again, the Kings should be better than Utah. Those should be wins. And then you got the Lakers after Utah. And then you got Oklahoma City. And then the very next night, you got the Chicago Bulls. That's always a tough test. And then you got the start of November. You got on the road in Milwaukee. Who knows what they're going to be about. And then you against the Denver Nuggets. And then you come home for 5 games in early November against Golden State, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, and then a home back-to-back against the Nuggets and the Atlanta Hawks. And then you got a 5-game road trip at the end of November where you go to Minnesota, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Memphis, back-to-back, and then you conclude that road trip against the Denver Nuggets. And then you're home, and then you conclude the month of November at home against Minnesota and Phoenix, and then you go to Utah, and then you end November against the Memphis Grizzlies. Not a great start to the season, schedule-wise, for the Sacramento Kings because there's a lot of tough teams in there, and I could see a 10-game losing streak in that stretch between the end of October and in November. And if that happens, this could be a long season for the Sacramento Kings for this upcoming season. And then if you want to look at the month of December, you kick it off on the road at Houston, at Miami, and then you got in Indianapolis. And then you got the NBA Cup in early December. Then you're in Portland, and then you come home for 4 games at the end of December against Portland, the Rockets, the Pistons, who've had your number, and then Cooper Flag makes his Sacramento debut for the Mavericks, and then you end the month of December in LA against the Lakers and the Clippers. Just a really tough schedule for the Sacramento Kings. And then again, you got the month of January, which is packed. You get your longest homestand of 7 games, and then your longest road trip in one single month for the Sacramento Kings in January. And to top things off, the Kings over-under is 35.5 wins. So my question, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on your preferred audio platform, the Kings over-under is 35.5. I'm not a betting person, what would you take that over and under for Sacramento this upcoming season, or would you not touch it at all? Let me know in the comments down below. If this team is healthy, and if you look at the players that the Kings have currently on this team, how do they not win 36 games if they're healthy? I could see them winning 36 games. Could they win 40? I don't think they will, but anything can happen in the NBA because a team in the West could get snake bitten by injuries and fall completely off. Who knows? It's professional sports and anything can happen. But thanks for tuning in for this episode of our Kings-related podcast. We'll catch you next time on another edition of our Kings-related podcast. Be sure to give this video a like, a subscribe, leave a comment down below, and we'll see you next time. And as always, go Kings.